So the evidence that the prosecutor uses in DUI cases is really the totality of the case. That starts with the initial stop and the reason for it. So the initial stop is going to be what the officer saw that actually gave them reasonable suspicion to believe that a crime may have occurred. So that starts with something related to driving, generally speaking. Not always, but generally. So weaving, not stopping at a stop sign, making a wide turn, things like that. Just enough so the officer has a reason to stop the vehicle. So that all comes into play. From there, it depends on what the officers witnessed after pulling the vehicle over and actually having contact with the person. So they're looking for things like slurred speech, bloodshot, watery eyes. Odor of alcohol is often a big one. Whether somebody's able to divide their attention between speaking with the officer and doing other things like pulling out license, registration, insurance, things like that. So all of that goes into indicia that the officer is picking up on. From there, there's other signs that the officer looks for. If the person steps out of their vehicle and they are unsteady on their feet, if they're wobbly, or during the conversation with the police, if they're not able to answer questions correctly or in a way that makes sense, all of that goes into it. So at whatever point the officer believes that they may be dealing with a DUI, at that point they will be asking for something called SFSTs, or standardized field sobriety tests, also known as roadside tests. So for that, they're going to be, it is voluntary. That is something that they make clear. They're often very good at getting people to do these, but it is voluntary, and that's important that people remember that. The things that they'll look for, generally speaking, are horizontal gaze and nystagmus tests. So they'll hold a stimulus in front of their eyes, and they'll look for equal tracking. They'll look for jumping in the eyes, things like that. And there are a number of different clues that they can pick up from that. From there, they'll do the walk and turn test. So walking in a line, making sure that you're actually able to do that and follow instructions. And then the one leg stand test, which is a balancing test. So those are generally the three tests that they'll do for SFSTs. And that all comes into play for what the prosecutor's using at trial. From there, if an officer believes that they have probable cause to make an arrest, they will arrest the person with a DUI, and at that point, express consent takes effect. So in Colorado, express consent is the idea that by driving in the state of Colorado, you've already consented to a chemical test of your blood or your breath. Now, oftentimes you can refuse that test. Officers generally don't make you do the test, but you've already consented to a chemical test of your blood or your breath. And so from there, they'll either transport you to the hospital or to the police station where that chemical test will be done. And that's a big one, is obviously when those results come back, depending on the outcome, if it's over 0.08, that's a big factor in the evidence that the DA is going to be using at trial. So oftentimes after the SFSTs are completed, the officers will ask if you want to do a PBT, or a preliminary breath test. So that's just essentially a roadside breath test. It's not admissible in trial, but it is something that the officers can use to determine whether there's probable cause in your case. And so if that PBT comes up showing that it's over 0.08, that gives them reason to make an arrest. So if you refuse to take the tests, depending on the jurisdiction, the officers can either get a warrant and force you to take the test, or a lot of times they'll allow you not to take the test. But that has implications in a number of different ways. On one hand, it's favorable because there is no test that actually shows that you're above the legal limit, but it can be used against you in trial. And the question can be asked, why wouldn't you want to take the test if you are not intoxicated? The other way that it has an impact is that it can make the length of suspension for the DMV and revoking your license lengthier as well.